problem is that only 3% of all the world's water is fresh. And of that 1%, of that 3%, only 1% of it is accessible. So we really have to be careful with how we manage our water and make sure that it can supply the entire world. Now, as a little bit of a background, there are a bunch of freshwater resources. Freshwater resources shown by the hydrologic cycle. That is the most common way of us getting fresh water. It's the cycle of water being evaporated, the clouds traveling across the land, coming down in the mountains, landing in the watersheds, and then turning into rivers and lakes and so on and so forth. And so the lakes and rivers are our most easily accessible sources of fresh water, but there are other resources as well, such as glaciers and underground sources. Now, of our freshwater usage, we use it in agricultural, industrial, household, recreational, and environmental usages. So with all these, we have to manage our water properly and ensure that it's an even distribution and nobody suffers from it. So in Canada, just as an example, 4.8 billion cubic meters was used in agriculture. So that's over 74% of our water. And Canada is, if any of you did not know, is the country with the third largest amount of fresh water in the entire world. So we are using 74% of our resources for that. Now the causes of water mismanagement are very broad. As some examples, for lakes and rivers, we are increasing natural outflows by using hydroelectric dams or local irrigation. So this is withdrawing more water than what the lake and the resource can use to replenish it. So hydroelectric dams, with our growing need for energy, we are using them more and more often, and that's letting more water out, and so we're losing more water there. And also for irrigation, we're running out of water there because we need more food, because there's also the developing food crisis. So we're withdrawing more water to produce more food in the agricultural sector. Now, in addition to increasing the natural outflows, we are decreasing the inflows to these sources. So this includes cutting down the trees in the watersheds. So if you guys didn't know, the watersheds are the areas where the rain falls and they gather into little streams, and then they get into a little bit bigger streams, and they eventually grow into rivers, which go into the lakes, and then eventually end up in the ocean. But by cutting down the trees in the watersheds, this exposes the watersheds to erosion, and this starts to destroy the watersheds, cutting off the water supply from these areas. And so that reduces the inflows. Now also, we are diverting water supply. So digging canals and irrigation trenches, that's diverting the water supply to build up in lakes and rivers and so on. Also, another mismanagement, which is what addressed in the llama thing, was sewage is being dumped into our water supplies, causing pollution and all that kind of nasty stuff. So you can see there's a picture of raw sewage just being dumped in by the gallons into probably the only water supply in that city. Now, some of the consequences of water mismanagement can be very severe. Directly, most of you will probably think of drought. With drought, then, as you know, we'll run out of water, people get thirsty, unrelated populations, blah, blah, blah. And then also, we'll have shrinking water masses, such as the river shown here. As you can see, it's the massive riverbed there, but as the inflows have been reduced, it's only this big compared to what it could be. Now also, the destruction of the natural environment, this is due to less water for plants and trees to grow, and so we'll be creating unnatural deserts. Now some of the indirect consequences are famine. The world water crisis and the world hunger crisis go hand in hand. If we don't have water, we can't produce food, people get hungry, and there's famine. Now, this will lead to a discontent population, and there will probably be political unrest sometime in the near future in developing countries, in Africa and Asia and those areas, as the people riot for the need to water, because they want to have the need of water, the basic service of water. And this will lead to the deterioration of permanent settlements as people migrate to places where there is fresh water. Now, One of the biggest examples there are is Lake Victoria in sub-Saharan Africa. This is the second largest freshwater lake in the entire world. And it is bordered by Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. Now these nations don't seem to be cooperating too well on how to manage this lake. And so it is starting to shrink. And as it's shrinking, it's cutting off like the supply of water and the fishing industry, and it's the main source of water in this entire area. And so Uganda, with their increased dams, they're increasing the outflows, and believe it or not, way up in Ethiopia, and not even on the border, they're cutting down trees in the watersheds, and so they are reducing the inflows as well. And so it's pretty much, unless they come together and form an agreement to help sustain the lake, there is going to be a major drought in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, don't despair, there are some solutions to this. For pollution, there are some simple water treatment options available, such as portable UV sterilizers. If somebody can take their cup, stick it in for a couple minutes, have fresh drinking water. Other methods include distillation. With distillation, it filters out all the bad stuff, and so people can drink it. There's already a really, really big distillation plant in Saudi Arabia that's Saudi Arabia. That supplies about an eighth of the country with their fresh water supply. Also, there is reverse osmosis, which is pushing the water through a semi-permeable membrane, and this also filters out all the pollutants. Now, for forestry, they can enforce special regulations on cutting down trees in the watersheds. So this could prevent the destruction of the watersheds and maintain the current inflows into the water sources so that we won't run out of water there. And for irrigation, we can increase the efficiency of our irrigation mechanisms. That could incorporate reducing the amount of evaporation that is affected by irrigation, or increasing the even spread on the crops to help reduce the amount of water used and keep the same crop. Also, household appliances are one of the worst offenders for this. If you look at our toilets, one flush a day uses about 8 or 9 liters. Now, multiply that by how many times you use a toilet in one day. That's probably a lot. You're counting it. You probably can't count it on 2 hands. And then, you multiply that by the amount of people in one city. That's a lot of water being used. But what I think Europe right now has a hang of what to do, as the step forward for this kind of thing. They have how many people here have been to Europe? Okay, so have any of you seen the little toilets you go in and there's the 2 buttons that you press? Yeah, there's the big one and the small one. The big one is for you get the idea. So it uses more water to flush away the bad stuff, and the small button uses about 2 liters per flush, and so that's saving a lot of water. And it's not only toilets that are being the culprits. There's also dishwashers and sinks and washing machines and all that stuff. So in the future, if we don't address this problem, it will obviously get worse. And as I explained earlier, sub-Saharan Africa is going into a crisis mode. They don't know, they're losing their fresh water supply, and sooner or later it's going to turn into anarchy. Now, with this, the populations of the world will become discontent. Not only because people are, a lot of people actually are going to be running out of water. There's going to be people in nations like us, in Canada, that are going to be seeing this crisis, and they're going to be like, why aren't we doing anything about this? And so there's going to be a big revolution on this sooner or later. And also, there will be a massive environmental destruction. People expect that there will be about 1.5 times as much desert in the world than there is today if we don't stop this crisis. And so, as many people believe, the next world war will be fought over water.